Hello, and thank you for joining C Pointers, Tech Career Pointers, Women Mentors Insights, a podcast to inspire and empower women around the globe to explore career paths and make an impact in tech. It's my pleasure to introduce your host, Wissam Darwish.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for tuning in. And hello, Jody. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you, Jody, and a very warm welcome to the C Pointers podcast. And thank you for sharing your time with me and with our listeners today. Let's start with an introduction. Can you tell us a bit about your current role, which part of the world you call home today, your educational background, and as an icebreaker question, I know you love to entertain and to have people over. So I'm going to ask you about ideas for fun games when having friends over.
Awesome. Great. Well, I am currently the GM of support offerings and go-to-market here at Microsoft. And some of your listeners might be asking, well, what does that mean? What do you actually do? And our team develops the commercialized support, quote unquote, products, which help our customers achieve business outcomes for their technology investments. Now, if I told my mom and dad that, they would still not understand what I do. So I've explained it in a different way. So essentially, the support and services that surround technology are really delivered through technical experts within our organization. And that is what makes the technology work in our customer's environment. So those support and services that are wrapped with that technology allows a customer to achieve all kinds of things within their environment that they want to do. So that's what I do today. With regards to where I live, I'm fortunate enough to call San Diego home. We've lived here for over 20 years. I don't think we're ever going to leave. And yes, my family and I are everything that the San Diego brochure tells you. We are a water-based, yoga-loving, e-biking, green juice-making family. So we're the typical brochure there. And my husband, otherwise known as my third child, I sometimes call him that, he keeps us having fun with his love of games. And this is all kinds of lawn games, ping pong, arcade games, basketball, you name it. He is a very large child at heart. And then when we entertain people, make sure everyone is fed and, of course, that their beverage cup is full. It makes my food taste a lot better when we entertain. And we do entertain frequently. We have a lot of friends and family that gather at our house, everything from very, casual barbecues to fancy themed dinners. So I love it all.
That's awesome. I'd love to be on your list of people to entertain when I'm in San Diego.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We welcome you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's dive right in. Talk about career journey in tech. Jody, wow. When I look at your amazing career journey in tech so far, Sun Microsystems, Oracle, Google, to name a few, and now Microsoft. Tell us a little bit about how it all started for you and how you navigated various roles and what kind of challenges did you face along the way?
Yeah, it's been a really amazing journey, I have to say, and one that I did not plan for, to be quite honest. I graduated college. Actually, I went to college in Santa Barbara. We forgot to touch on that in the previous question. But I graduated from college with a psychology degree. So when I left and graduated college, I quickly realized I did not have the emotional capacity to pursue the profession. It really does take a very special human to do that. So I did what any college graduate would do. I took every penny I had and traveled until I ran out of money. And then I moved home. But I quickly realized that I needed a job and landed a job in the financial services industry of all places. That led to some great experiences in the world of the dot-com era, which might be a little bit out there from years, but it definitely is showing how old I am. And tried and attempted to become part of a startup, which unfortunately failed. But it did lead to, I think, where my career actually started in services and support, which was with Sun Microsystems in their iPlanet division. And this really did kick off kind of my interest in this space. I managed contract renewals. I worked with OEMs with regards to their support relationship with us. And that network developed, and this is pre-LinkedIn days, everyone. So this is old-fashioned networking days. It led me to continue my experience in support and services throughout my journey here. And everything that I have done to date really was around learning it by doing it. And because I didn't go to college to learn to be a support and services professional, that wasn't really an option that I was aware of at the time. So I was able to engage with a lot of mentors. I leaped into a lot of stretch projects, which I was wildly inexperienced for. I'll be very honest, especially now that I'm looking back at that. But it led me to the position I hold now.
This is great. From your point of view, Jody, and throughout this journey in tech, what is it that you appreciate most about working in the high-tech sector, and what would you change?
Let's see. So I appreciate the pace of tech. I have worked in an industry, a retail industry. I worked for Pepsi for a short amount of time. Very slow pace. I enjoy the pace of technology. It is fast. Innovation continues to break ground. It's really amazing to have a front row seat for things that are happening literally daily. And it's also great to be in this space because everything a person engages with today incorporates an element of technology in their daily life. And I found it most fascinating when I was explaining this to my parents who wonder what I do on a regular basis as well, besides working for Microsoft. And I recently shared a Wall Street Journal article with my dad. And it explained our relationship with Epic, which was very timely given a lot of the health appointments that they had on their plate. And it explained how our company was really improving the way hospitals manage patient information, develop intelligent self-service opportunities. And it was just really cool to be a part of that and to see it materialize in the world around us. So that is why I like the tech space. I like it for the pace. I like it that it touches every aspect of what we do now. And it really allows us to innovate in ways that we wouldn't dream possible probably 20, 30 years ago, or heck, even 2 years ago, right? With the development of how fast this industry goes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. What are from a challenge perspective within the tech, the pace is on the positive side. What are some of the challenges that you see in the tech sector from a career perspective?
From a career perspective, it depends on what aspect, what role you're playing in a technology company. If you are joining a technology company to be an engineer, it's a very aggressive and challenging role. You really do need to put the work in to be able to establish yourself as an engineer. And it's very hard. It's not an easy job, right? It could have great rewards when you're able to bring something new and innovative to market, but it could be also very frustrating when things don't work as well. If you're joining the technology industry to become a program manager, to be a product marketing leader, to be a marketing leader, to be a human resource individual, to really focus on DE&I, those are different roles that require different career paths that can be applied in technology, but it can also be applied to other industries as well. So I really do think it depends on the role and where those challenges and benefits appear.
Fast pace and innovation is definitely a theme. Jody, you're an amazing leader, and I know this from experience. So I'd love to pivot a little bit to talk about leadership for a few minutes if we can. I think leadership opportunities exist in everyone's day-to-day activities. When talking about leadership, however, people might mistakenly gravitate towards thinking that it is something tied to a role or position with authority. In your opinion, how do you define leadership and how can one spot leadership opportunities that they can take on to grow within their current role and beyond?
Good questions. I want to just hone in on something you said, that leadership isn't actually tied to a role, because I would 100% agree with that statement. Leadership is not reserved for executives. It truly is not. It begins as a state of mind, followed by really intentional actions. So if we all think back to our childhood and where we were at in elementary school or your primary school, depending on where you went, think back to who led group projects in your English class or in your science class. Who was the first on the field for a sporting event practice? Who got there first? That's really what leadership is. It's really the effort and the person that puts the work in to become a leader. Because if we take kind of that principle and fast forward in our careers and where people are at today, whether you're just starting a career, whether you're considering taking on a promotion or a different role, or if you're more senior in role, it really matters what the attributes of that human are and what they contribute. It really means putting in the extra work. It really means raising your hand on stretch projects. It really means making intentional time to learn more than what you would do in your day-to-day job. A leader has to have a broader context to the company, the organization, the effort, the initiative, whatever the project is that they're kind of scoping out. And it really means improving your presence and encouraging others to build with you. So leaders don't do anything on their own. I don't think you can actually do anything on your own at any company these days. It really does take quite a lot of folks. But you have to be able to have an appreciation for each individual and what they bring to a project. And so that you can weave that narrative together and paint a vision as to where you're bringing this group to or this idea towards. And I think that is what leaders are at companies.
These are amazing insights. Thank you so much for sharing, Jody. And it's a fantastic segue into my next question. And I think you touched upon some of this already, but I would like to zoom in on the qualities that you look for when hiring leaders on your team. If you were to name top 2 or 3 traits or skills that you're after, what is it that you look for in leaders on your team?
So when I look to hire people to join my organization, I don't look at them as a leader or an individual contributor. I look at them as potential talent and what they can bring into the organization. And I focus generally on 3 things. 3 is my favorite number, so I tend to go towards that number on everything I do. But first, I do observe for someone that can demonstrate the ability to actively listen in a discussion and appreciate the perspectives of the attendees that are in that call or when you're having just a one-on-one interview. The reason I do that is because it shows me that an individual is intentional on how they're going to collaborate with others, kind of getting back to that leadership point. You cannot do anything on your own. So because there's no project process or anything that one person can do, everything requires that teamwork. So I really do focus on that as an attribute. So active listening is it's an acquired skill, and it does take practice. I practice it regularly. I'm not great at it, but I try to do better. So that's my first one. The second one is I really seek out someone who can be a decision maker. Now, this might sound a little strange, but I have observed that a team generally waits and aligns to a leader. They might just sit there and pause until somebody makes a decision. So if a leader is unable to make a decision and provide direction, that team stalls, meaning we stop doing work. Well, we just talked about the pace of the technology industry. You cannot afford to stall, even if the decision is not the right one, because you won't make the right decision every time. And all decisions have risks. But if we're able to use a data-driven insight that can give us directionally accurate guidelines, that is very helpful. And that leader needs to be accountable for those decisions and know that if that decision wasn't the right one, that they feel responsible enough and accountable enough to pivot, right? And adjust to those unforeseen situations. So the value of a decision maker is extremely important to me as a leader or any person on the team. And that decision doesn't always have to be yes. Sometimes the best decision is actually no. So having somebody have that capability is also extremely valuable to me. And then the third attribute is having great communication. It's the equalizer to all, in my opinion. So working in a large company where there's so many stakeholders, a lot of them have competing priorities. A lot of them have different objectives. A lot of them have different intentions when they're coming to a project or cross-functional transformation of some sort. So having very good communication skills is extremely important to, one, state the intent, but also to influence where you need to. So you have to be able to read an audience. You have to be able to understand which individuals you need to influence or receive information in different ways. So it's actually more complicated than you think than just communicating something in an email. You have to be able to adapt and understand your environment. And if you cannot communicate that vision that you're trying to achieve or paint that picture of what's possible, it's really hard to excite people to bring along with you in the journey that you're working towards.
These 3 points are fantastic to keep in mind. Thank you for sharing, Jody. If we pivot to career growth, you're a psychology major, so I can't help but to tap into that side of your amazing experience. In a high-tech environment, and especially in a high-performing environment, imposter syndrome is very prevalent, especially with people who struggle with perfectionism or self-efficacy. This might hinder their growth opportunities to take on leadership roles or even stretch themselves into new challenges. What advice do you have for dealing with this for individuals looking to grow as leaders?
Yes, that psychology degree. I use that thing every day of my life, actually. So it's funny that you brought that up. I think navigating humans is complex. I used to have small humans, but those humans have grown larger now. But both small humans and big humans, and then big humans who act like small humans on occasion, are super hard to navigate and hard to manage. So that psychology degree has definitely come in handy. But on the topic of imposter syndrome, so if we kind of look at it from like a clinical standpoint, it's really a form of anxiety, right? Everyone gets nervous or it's very inhibiting for some people too, and it has varying degrees of how it affects somebody. And depending on that person and their environment, or gosh darn it, that social media feed that continues to absorb them, they might have a feeling of less than, right? Less than something. And let's be honest, when you see the news or you see things happening on social media, greatness, quote unquote, gets more airtime than just normal, regular, standard operating. So I think that's a really big challenge overall for imposter syndrome. But if we take a step away from that, from like the clinical kind of side of that, personally, I think imposter syndrome is actually a good thing. I know that might sound a little bizarre to hear that, but to me, it means that you're either pushing yourself or someone is pushing you to do something that you haven't done before, pushing you outside of your normal comfort zone, which is scary at times. But it means you're growing. It means you're learning. It means you're experiencing something new. And it also means you might fail. And that is 100% accurate. And I had a great conversation with a woman years ago that I used to work for. And she said to me, Jody, if you aren't waking up every day just a little bit scared of the work that you're doing in this company, you need to move on to the next role. And you know what? She was right. She's also the person that I called before even taking on this role at Microsoft because I really value her opinion. She's got great experience, great insight, but she also knows the power of pushing someone a little bit further than they think that they can handle it. So you think of every day you make choices, you make decisions. Like this morning, I woke up and said, do I want half and half of my coffee? The answer is always yes, by the way. But then you think, did I need those extra calories, or is that going to hurt my belly later on, right? I mean, those are decisions you make based on knowledge and experience. I know I love the experience of coffee in the morning and having quiet time. That is a joyful moment for me. So I make that decision every day. So it's a silly example, but think of all the decisions and choices you make during your day. They're all based on your experience and your knowledge and your wealth of things that you know about yourself. So don't be afraid to be assertive, to make decisions and share your knowledge. If you are more than you think you are as humans, and everyone on this planet is learning every day. I mean, let's be honest, Bill Gates is still learning. Do you know how many books he reads a week? It's insane. So take the chance. The worst thing you can do is fail, and you will fail, but that's how you get better. And if you do fail, I'm guessing you're going to learn something new.
Definitely a fresh perspective. Thank you, Jody, for sharing that. You alluded to a mentor that you talked to and that you value her opinion. If we switch gears a bit to talk about mentorship and choosing a mentor, there's also the concept of sponsorship that goes along with mentorship that people often forget about. What are your tips for seeking both in an organization?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. And in all honesty, it depends on the individual person on how they're able to define these kind of similar themes. And I've participated in both formal mentoring programs, I've participated in leadership programs, and I've participated in women-specific sponsorship programs. And I have found that I respond best to organically establish relationships with people I value. For me, that has been the best way of navigating my professional career. Some of the formal mentoring programs I've participated just have seemed a little bit ingenuine to me, meaning I either didn't pair myself well with the person that I was part of that program with, or we didn't think the same. And sometimes it's hard to navigate that without really knowing someone. So I have found sponsorship and mentoring through initiatives I've worked on and or I've driven. And a great example of this is when I was working at Genesys, which is a contact center, customer experience company at this point. And I was asked to join a really sizable transformation project of the technical support organization. I was not in the technical support organization at the time, but I was asked to participate in it. And it really required a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. It was a hand-selected group from all over the organization with different leveling. So I got to meet quite a lot of people. And it was really designed to bring different dimensions into the project, different thinking. And it gave me an opportunity to demonstrate some of my capabilities that I had with the executive sponsoring this transformation. And it was really through that connection that I was able to kind of showcase my value and really earn a seat at the table, essentially. And it gave me legs to get into the next transformation project, which ultimately led to this particular executive sponsoring me. And that person we didn't sign up for a program. We didn't have a regular cadence, but it was an organically led sponsorship, which led to my promotion in the company because they were the one that were rallying behind me. So that to me was more important and helpful in my career than a formal program, and it resulted in a very positive way for me.
This is great. This has been a very exciting conversation with you, Jody. I can't tell you how much this is enjoyable. With the time that we have left, if I'm to leave our listeners with one more theme, if you can help shape the professional journey of others in the tech sector, especially women, whether they're just starting their careers or venturing into tech, what would you like them to know?
Uh, Someone asked me this question actually recently. They said, "How did I get to where you got, Jody? Like, how did you get to be a GM at Microsoft?" And I continue to have a very similar response when people ask me this question. I put in the work. It's kind of the bottom line. I started at the bottom. I encourage anyone to just start. That's kind of half the journey, is just starting. Learn the roles, explore the teams, take the time to build your toolbox. That toolbox can shape differently depending on what role you're interested in, but do the work. There isn't a magical book. There isn't a specific course that's going to teach you the tech business. You really need to learn it by being part of it.
And never stop learning. Well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for an exciting and inspirational conversation, Jody. And thank you again for sharing your time and insights with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. Until next time, explore opportunities to grow and empower others to do the same.